special place. This is the future of Alaska in many ways. Because when you come into this building, you're inspired. When you come into this building, you're asking questions, not about the past, but about the future. When you come into this building, you're thinking about how can we do things differently? How can we do things more efficiently? How can we look at the environment in which we live and use that as the anchor for the decisions that we make about whatever we do in our places? I grew up in the village of Yakutat. Some of you may know it. When I did, I'm a very young guy, really. I just had cataract surgery. Young people have that. And with just in one eye. In 2 weeks, I'll have the other eye done. So I'm rather uncomfortable because, really, from this eye, I can see a mic. I can see everybody just really great. And this eye, not so good. So it means I'm a little bit distracted as I look at you, and I apologize for that. I grew up in Yakutat. My mother, full-blooded Klingon, spoke her language, lived her life. Lived a life incredibly beautiful, incredibly intelligent. In her language, both loquacious and incredibly outspoken. In English, reserved, withdrawn, fearful, uncertain. I was mayor of Yakutat at age 22 because my dad had been mayor for many years and had passed away, and I just felt an obligation to be engaged in the work that he had begun. And this was right after statehood. Alaska had been a state for 6 years, 1965. And there was hope and opportunity and a sense of passion for the future in the air, everywhere across the state. It was an incredible time. And we felt it in our villages. In the village at that time, there was no safety net. The BIA had a small cash monthly stipend program where if you were really in tough shape, they would help. But we took care of ourselves. We literally took care of ourselves in every way. My dad had a small store, and I would break up the wooden crates that goods came in and take them to the elders for kindling, for their coal and for their wood stove. We would go out to Over Creek and get redfish as late as January, silver salmon for the elders. We would hunt deer, in season or out, in order to take care of ourselves. The state of Alaska had a small program called the Rural Development Program. And you could get, as a municipality, and then, even back then, as a traditional village, get state grants. Very small, maximum $50,000. And you could do things in your community, and you did them yourselves. Listen to me. We did them ourselves. We built the boardwalks. We built our own electrical system. We built our own water system. We built our own homes. Yakutat had huge tribal houses that were made of shiplap and frame construction from designs after they watched the cannery being built in Yakutat. Nobody came and taught them. They built them themselves. They looked at the cannery buildings and said, we can do that. And they did. The A&B Hall, the Alaska Native Brotherhood Hall that was built in 1929, all of the beams were hand adzed from timber that locals went and got and built themselves. The A&B Hall has been refurbished many times, but those smoke-blackened beams still are exposed for all of us to see and to hopefully understand. When Wally Hickel was governor, I was still in the governor's office. I had left Yakutat after a year of being mayor, joined Governor Egan's staff. I say joined Governor Egan's staff, I was a peon. I was in the furthest desk down the hall that you could find next to the janitor's closet. But I was in his office. And my job was to work with rural local governments on issues that the state might be able to assist with. And there were very few natives in government back then. Could count them on one hand. And I was one of them. Wally Hickel became governor, and one day his chief of staff called me into his office and said, you're going to Washington, D.C. with Ed Crittenden, the director of the State Housing Authority. Because Senator Bob Bartlett, remember him, he was still alive and he was in office. I lived an incredible life, man. Hickel, Bartlett, Greening, I mean, I was there just as a young pup. It was so incredible. I mean, they were just them then. Now they've become iconic figures. But in any event, said Bob Bartlett has a bill to create a program for housing in rural Alaska, village housing, called the Bartlett Housing Program. And we need someone to go back and testify. And all of the other natives are busy, so you have to go back. And they advanced me $75 to go to Washington, D.C. with Ed Crittenden, and we testified. And the salient feature of that program is that it was self-help. Those who were going to own the homes had a responsibility to be engaged with its construction. And we had no problem with that. It was the way we had always done things. That's gone. That whole thing is gone. What I grew up with, what informed my life, what impelled me to become engaged in ways that I was comfortable with and felt proud of, is gone. I support unionism. I think it's vital to our society, particularly with the incredible growing income gap that we face in this country. We need people to stand up for themselves and organize and say, we need to live in a healthy way. We need to be able to look management in the eye and say, let's talk about the stuff we need to talk about. So, but unions came along. And what else came along? Davis-Bacon. What else came along? Contracting. There was a big fight in the Alaska State Senate, led by a young senator named Willie Hensley. And he wanted to continue what then was called force accounting. And you know what force accounting is, where an agency or somebody, you just kind of shake hands with the community or write a contract and you go build something. And you use what is available in the community. Wages are what they are in a community. The local community makes the decisions about how you do it, maybe what it would look like. The unions fought to force accounting, it went away. Willie Hensley ran for statewide office a few years later. The unions opposed him, and he didn't get anywhere. Remember, I love unions. And their support has helped get me where I am in this office. But it was short-sighted, it was irresponsible, and it changed Alaska forever. Projects came to rural Alaska like spaceships coming from outer space. Kaplunk. No local hire, no nothing. People left, and the community was left with hundreds of thousands and over a period of time, millions of dollars in maintenance and operation. They had no ownership. They didn't care. It wasn't our project, it was dropped on us from somewhere. Now, they may have been engaged. Certainly they had to have been, their leadership. And they were grateful. But it's changed our lives. What happens? You look at these things as kind of an entitlement. We need a new washateria, we need this, we need that, we need this. Or government prescribes or prescribes, this is what you need. And they happen. And they happen in ways that are determined and designed in Washington, D.C., or Anchorage, or Seattle, or Houston, Texas. And they have no relationship to where you live. And what your values are, and what your aspirations are, and what you want for your children. But over time, it accretes in every aspect of your life. And it begins to break down, and it doesn't work anymore, and it becomes hugely costly. And you're still grateful because you live in the greatest nation in the world, and it's putting billions of dollars into where you live. But it's not you, and it's not your place. And the result is, if we don't change the way we build Alaska, we will be haunted by continuing generations of places in rural Alaska where nothing works, where people are leaving, where there is no ownership, where there is no sense that this is their place. We, as Native people or rural people, have to take responsibility. We do. They're struggling. They're working as hard as possible in order to make these places work. We have to change the way we do it. And Jack is among the iconic leaders helping to lead that effort. And I hope that you're inspired by him. And I hope that you're inspired by what you will get involved with, are involved with here this week. You're all aware that Alaska faces right now, and the legislature must deal with it this session, a fiscal crisis where out of a $5+ billion general fund budget, we have a gap of about $3.5 billion, more than half. All of the pieces to resolve it are there. They are, with very modest impact all across our state, impacting every single Alaska in a fair and responsible way. And why do we have a fight in Juneau over that? Because we have no vision for the future. Ask anyone, what's your vision for Alaska? It has to do with them personally or their place or their circumstance. Not much larger than that. But if we don't resolve that fiscal crisis, how are we going to deal with investing in housing? How are we going to continue to grow our state? How are we going to get the private sector to continue to invest and to grow this place. As long as we have that incredible crisis overhanging us, Alaska's on hold. Alaska's in neutral. And worse, you're never in neutral, as you know in your life. If you're not advancing, the world continues to advance, so you're going backwards. Aren't you? Of course. Give us our life back. Give us. No. Help us take it back. Help us assert leadership. Help us to relearn how to do it ourselves. It'll never work otherwise. It never will. Hopefully we've learned that in 50 years of statehood when we began to invest. The other thing we need to change is the attitude toward rural Alaska. Government, private sector, pretty much all of those who have resources and can make judgments about where to apply them look at rural Alaska as a place where you sink cost. It's not a place to invest. It's a place where you put money not expecting any kind of return except to provide a service or to meet a need. You don't grow community that way. You do not. Jack said that this was an effort to look at our world holistically, and I believe him. He lives it every single day. Our communities need to have a passion for place. Remember that phrase, Jack. A passion for place. Otherwise, rural Alaska is going to continue to be a place in which people suffer, in which things don't work, in which you can't make a difference because it's too costly. But if you just, in terms of attitude, say this isn't a place where we sink dollars, this is a place where we invest in order to grow our future. Things change. Changes in your head because you begin to look at that world differently. And we must. 50 years from now, when we look at the centennial of statehood, we will see one of two things. And history will judge us by this. We will be judged. And our children and grandchildren will know what that judgment was. We will be a place in which every single Alaskan knows that they have opportunity. No matter where they live, they will know that they live in a safe place. A place in which the private sector and government invest responsibly and they take charge of those places. And in that kind of public policy and societal value structure, you know rural Alaska will become a good place. Or we will continue what we have. And what we have in Alaska, in which urban Alaska is well taken care of. A place in which urban Alaska thrives. Urban Alaska has every amenity that investment by the government or private sector can make possible. We're almost there now with urban Alaska. And I don't fault that in any way at all. But if 50 years from now, we still have a rural Alaska that we have now. If 50 years from now, native rural Alaskans are living on their lands and prospering there and caring for that place, and their children are there, history will look at us and say, they did something wrong, really wrong. But we aren't going to go there. It's going to be gatherings like this and leaders like you that are going to take us to a different place. Thank you so much.